Hey guys, what is going on, my people? Welcome back to Modern Leadership. And we got a lot of powerful things to chat with you guys today. So let me ask you, have you ever wondered how to double your productivity? How do you get more stuff done in less time? Like, how do you do things in a way where you can do it once and then it gets multiplied so many different times, but yet it doesn't have to be done by you? Now, we've talked a lot in the past, and I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who are trying to do it all themselves, people with like small teams, like 2 to 5 people, and then people with like 30, 40, 50 plus people on their team. And we talk a lot about, usually about like time management skills. But there's a piece that we have never talked about, and we need to really talk about it here today. And the reason why is because finding and developing teammates so that you can delegate some of the things that you absolutely hate doing, the things that take you too long of time, but also like finding experts, and you guys are going to get access to Kurt next week, finding experts who really know how to multiply your time so that you do one thing and then it keeps coming back time and time again. And you can put it on all the social medias. You could do everything with it and actually make a bigger impact by just doing the things you love and that you enjoy the most. So guys, that is what we're going to be tackling today. We're going to be talking about how to find, how to train, how to delegate, what time or what point should you actually get a teammate? And if you have teammates, how do you elevate what you're currently doing with your team right now to make it, number one, be a business and a company or a team that they actually want to work for, but also help them achieve their goals so they can help your team achieve theirs. If it feels like a separated team, if it feels like everybody's on their own mission, we're going to really rock your world today because we're going to give you some strategies and tips to make this all possible. So guys, welcome to Modern Leadership, where we help you see things differently. We help entrepreneurs and coaches who are looking to excel both in their personal and their professional lives, but without having to sacrifice family time or burning themselves out. We are not about the hustle culture. We are about using coaching to really develop our leadership, to really develop our influence, and be able to help everybody achieve their goals and really do this as a team effort. And that's what we do here on this channel. On Mondays and Thursdays, we have shorter videos. On the weekends, we have longer episodes like today, where we can really break down some things for you, answer some questions live. And we have some amazing humans who are here already here on this call, a lot of push coaches who are here. And I do want to do a little bit of a roll call. It looks like we have Amber, we have Carmen, we have Ed, we have Shelly. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. And we want to hear from you. So if you are somebody who we didn't call out right now, put your name in the comments. We want to definitely recognize you for being here live. If you're in the replay, we also want to hear that you're here, that you're leaning in, that you're willing to like see things differently. You're willing to take less action, but actually get more results, because that's what we're going to be all about. Now, some things that we have coming up. I already talked to you about this. So this week, we're going to really talk about how to hire, how to train, how to delegate, how to get people to like really be a part of your team and feel like a cohesive team, where it feels like everybody's working in the same direction. What I love is, and this doesn't necessarily happen with me and Kurt, we're usually working the same kind of hours, but Nais, our other teammate, when I'm sleeping, my social media is growing. When I'm sleeping, people are finding me on YouTube. When I'm sleeping, people are listening to my pod. They're getting messages from Nais. And it's a way of like being able to grow exponentially even when you're sleeping. And that's what we're going to really be talking about today, like how to design that, what to think about before you do your first hire. And if you've hired somebody before, what you can do to actually get yourself to elevate that. Now, next week, we're actually going to have Kurt on here live. So Teresa and I are going to be peppering him with questions. He is a master when it comes to multiplication, all right? He has helped me tremendously do all the things that you see here. So many people are like, how do you do all this? I'm like, well, I don't. Kurt does most of it because he's a master of me filming one video and him going to town. And then there's shorts, and then there's reels, and then there's posts, and then there's a podcast, and then there's a video, and everybody's like, oh my God, you're showing up everywhere. And I'm like, that's cool because I made one 6-minute video.
And so you're going to have really, really good.
But yeah, you're going to have the opportunity of being on here live while we ask him some questions like, how can other people do this? What happens if they just get started? Also, these lights and this good camera angle and this really good tech setup that we have here is from him because he is a professional when it comes to editing, not only video, but audio. He's a professional DJ. So you're going to actually be able to hear him answer a bunch of questions from us because we know you guys have all the great questions. We're going to be asking you on social media this week, but we're going to bring all that information here to you guys next weekend. Another thing that we have going on is we actually have a book club, a leadership business or business leadership book club. So if you're someone who loves to read personal development, doing that on your own is great, but doing that as a team is called exponential growth. It will help you speed up that process. Have you ever seen that when you read a book and then you read it the second time, you actually see it with like a different set of eyes? You find different things. You're like, I don't even remember reading this. This is so powerful. That's the opportunity you get when you get to read with a team. Now, how we do that is I'll leave you the link inside of the description to join our team. We have a private app that we actually share some of the takeaways that we have every single day. And then we come once a week live on Thursday where we break down whatever those chapters were that were assigned. All right. So if you have not signed up for the book club and you love personal growth, definitely dive into that. And then, of course, you guys know we always have Saturday weekend workshops. We're not here to overwhelm you. We're here to give you the resources that you need. If you need some personal development, personal growth, lean into the book club. If you need some help with your team, obviously lean into this call and then the next week's call. If you need smaller videos because you just don't have time, go check out our Mondays and Thursdays. And definitely, if you're somebody who's brand new, consider subscribing because we have a ton of stuff that's going to be able to help you. But we don't mean for you to consume it all. We want you to consume what you need the most. So guys, that being said, we are going to dive right into today's topic. It's going to be a little bit in depth of a training because these are all the things that if I had started off fresh, these are all the things I wish I had known beforehand. It would have saved me so much time, energy, frustration, and this big thing called money because I didn't know what I was doing when I was first recruiting, when I was first training, when I was first teaching. I learned so much of this. Number one, from getting dirty, from messing it up, from making mistakes, still making mistakes to today, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And that's what I want to do for you guys here. That's the purpose of my channel, is to speed it up so you can experience growth in the shortest time possible. And that's what we're going to do today about creating a team. Now, that being said, I could not start off without my main teammate here, my amazing wife, Teresa, who you guys don't know, even understand how she keeps everything even makes this possible. This would not be possible without her. So just excited to have you on here and also to always get your insight because you obviously look at things a little bit differently than me. And it is so awesome to be able to have a team like this where I get to work with the person that I love more than anybody on the planet. So thank you so much for coming to the call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to start off breaking this into 3 different sections. All right. The first section we're talking about is how to recruit and hire. So how to find a teammate. Now here, caveat for this, all right? We're going to be talking about like many different ways of hiring and finding a teammate. But did you know that your significant other can be your teammate? Did you know your kids can be your teammate? I mean, it's really great because you probably do feed them. You probably do give them a home. You probably do pay for their college. I don't know. You like all of these things, right? Probably buy them a car. Like you would probably benefit them to actually be a part of the business that you have that you're creating. And I don't care how old they are. I mean, how easy is it to copy and paste some messages, right? So we are going to talk about like how to actually recruit and find and hire and train people. But I don't want you to just be like laser focused just on that. I want you to think about the many different resources that you can actually plug into, the different ways that you can actually expand this, and not just thinking about it through monetary purposes, but also through like, who are some people that I know that I can actually hire and get a part of the team and have them be a part of this for the future. All right. So that being said, we're going to go through recruiting and hiring. The second part we're going to talk about is training. What do you do when you find them, right? Or if you have, your family, how do you train them to do some of these things? And then the last part is going to be delegating. How do you delegate? And it's funny. People are like, what do you mean, how do you delegate? Do you know I coach hundreds of entrepreneurs. I coach quite a few one-on-one. And when they have a team, sometimes they don't delegate to them. It's crazy, right? It's so easy to not delegate. Oh, it's got to be perfect. I've got to do this. It's going to take too long to teach and train them. So that last part is going to be especially critical. So if you're somebody who's like, I don't need any help with delegating, you're going to use that section, I promise you, because that's going to be the most impactful. There's nothing worse than buying and paying and, spending your time, money, energy, setting this up and then actually not delegating it. All right. So that's one thing that we're going to do. We're going to release some of those things. And I got to tell you, like in the beginning, it's going to be kind of scary, but afterwards it's going to be like, this is the greatest thing. Thank you so much, Mark and Teresa. This is the greatest gift you give me. And I do want you to say that at the end. All right. So if that is something that is true, I want to hear from it. Okay. All right. So let's dive right in. Teresa's going to start. So Teresa, number 1 is you.
All right. Number 1 is hire before you're ready. Hire before you're ready. Most of the time, people will think, I am not ready yet. I am not ready to have somebody on the team. I'm not ready to look for someone. And what I want to really emphasize is when we say hire, we don't mean hire someone to work for you for 40 hours, right? It's not hiring someone full time. Like, you start off small at the beginning because there's always something that you are doing that is not producing results or is taking up too much of your time, where you could be spending that on something else that is producing results. So there are always there's a lot of moving parts to owning a business. It doesn't matter what business you have. And there's always something that still needs to be done, but it doesn't necessarily need to be done by you. So when we say hire, we mean someone that can help you with a task or a responsibility that you want to take off your plate. Now, like Mark said earlier, this isn't about the hustle mentality. It doesn't all need to be done by you. And also we want to empower you to actually work on your business rather than in your business. So this is about chipping away at those things that you don't need to be in your business, that don't necessarily you either don't enjoy or you're not really good at. I mean, with Kurt, he is a master at video, at editing, at even giving us advice, like saying, hey, you know what, this was great, guys, but I think this would really be better. And he can see that because he has that gift of looking at things from a different perspective than us. Like, we didn't get into the business of video editing. So why would we spend our time doing that? Like, that would take us so much time that by hiring Kurt, which we actually initially, we didn't hire Kurt for video editing. So, it evolves, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later. But we gave him tasks that we didn't want to do or that we didn't need to do so that we can put our energy and effort in, signing up for a life coaching certification and then building a life coaching certification. So all of that was possible because we got people on our team. Nais, someone who we've been working with for a really long time now, she's an integral. How do you say that word?
Integral.
I can't speak right now. She's a very important part of our team, and we love her so much. And she takes on some of the tasks that we don't want to do anymore. We don't want to send messages to people, initial messages, right? Like, she is able to do that, and it doesn't take her a lot of time, but it would take us a lot of time because we overanalyze and overthink things. Her, I have a task, let me do that, copy paste. That's it. Right? So it doesn't take her a lot of time. It completely eliminates that from our stuff so that we can focus on coaching people, making sure that we still grow and we can do courses and things like that. So when we say hire before you're ready, you're never really going to be ready. Like, if you really think about it, because when you're thinking, when I'm ready, well, what does that mean? Like, ask yourself that question, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, what does ready mean for me? Does it mean when I make $1 million? Well, if you make $1 million, you don't get to $1 million by yourself. Mm-mm. You don't, by doing all of the things, like sending all the messages and editing all the videos, you don't get to $1 million that way. You get to $1 million by adding people to your team so that you can focus on the things that you really need to do, right? So ask yourself that question when I'm ready. Okay, I'm not going to be ready. So let me do it before I am. And it's just a little piece. And we've mentioned this before. It's not just in your business. Think about it. It could be in your life, right? We always talk about this, about someone cleaning our house. I am kind of a neat freak and I like things clean, but it takes too much time for me to do that when I could be doing something else, like getting on coaching calls. And it's also a way for me to, we call this in coaching, we call it buffering. And that is trying to get away or doing something to avoid a feeling. So if I'm bored or if I'm feeling sad or whatever, I start cleaning because it gets my mind busy. But if the house is clean, that's not an excuse for me anymore. So this was one of the initial things that we did, was hire someone to clean our house because it gave us the ability to focus on other things. And at first we hired my aunt. My aunt was, she does clean. She doesn't really do that anymore, but it was family and we paid her, it wasn't a lot, but we did pay her, and we did it before we were ready because we weren't making money in our business at that time. So I could go on and on about this one thing, but I'm going to move on. But I hope you got the point.
Let me just jump in. First off, you're on fire today. I'm just going to keep allowing you to go. You're like on fire for sure. Couple things that pop into my mind as we're having that conversation about hire before you're ready. Remember, like when you have those things that you're doing day to day and those are off your plate, if you're the creative type, you're going to want to find ways of like filling that up with actual money-making activities. So when you have what you're currently doing and you give that to someone else, you're going to have this feeling of like, I've got to do something else, right? And when you have that kind of feeling, you're going to get out there and you're going to do the things you know you need to do, I hope, because you're trying to move the needle forward, right? We're going to talk about this a little in the future, but like the reason why you take somebody on your team is either you have them doing money-making activities or they're taking things off your plate so you can do money-making activities. I can tell you, like, I have a lot of people that I coach. I have one specific client that I'm coaching right now who, if we want to like speed up the process for her, I'm like, don't do any of that yourself. Just give it to your VA, because we can overthink sending messages. We can overthink clicking the push, the play button or the post button, right? Our VAs don't do that. They're like, oh, this is good. Bam. And it's up and it's in the world. And then it's the greatest opportunity to grow exponentially because we don't have to think about that. Can I just tell you, and I know Carmen has said this a few times, like how it feels when you don't have to think about that anymore. It doesn't even have to like cross your mind anymore. For me, I have OCD. I know for sure I have OCD. I probably have ADHD as well. But for sure, when I don't have to think about it anymore, it's just something else out of my brain. I don't need to make any more decisions. It's like I shoot a video, I give it to Kurt, I'm done. Can I just tell you how freaking amazing it feels? Because I'm like, okay, what's next? What am I going to create? What program am I going to put together? And it's because I now have the time because I've been able to delegate and give some of those things away. So when we say hire before you're ready, we really mean it, because honestly, you're ready right now. Mm-hmm. You're already ready. All right. Mm-hmm. Would you rather be running a $500,000 a year program and try to catch somebody up to speed? Or start them now, so when you're writing a $500,000 company, like they're doing it all. And you're like just hiring more people and you're like overseeing it, right? Like Teresa said, you're working on your business, meaning you're like, oh, let's move this piece over here. You're like the chess piece. Or are you the actual pawn? Are you just moving what you're doing back and forth? Like if you want to win the game, you have to play it from this bird's eye view where you're the person who's controlling the pieces, not you're a part of that piece, all right? Now, one of these questions that Carmen asked, I'm going to bring it up here. She says, is it ethical to still give someone free value instead of paying them if it's an agreement? It is 100% ethical to do that. But I want to challenge you a little bit, because what you're doing is you're trading time for time. So what you want to do is you want to figure out, how can I trade money for time? Because in reality, if you're like, hey, I'll give you 3 hours worth of coaching session if you can work 3 hours on this for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, it might elevate it, because like if you're really good at coaching and they're really good at editing, that might be a great trade, right? If it takes you 9 hours to do editing and it takes them 2 hours and they do it really, really well, they have B-roll, they have all of these good things, right? Then that might be a good trade. But also, like, you got to think about, like, when it comes to long-term, like this might be a short-term thing. Long-term thing is I want to like pay and empower somebody else to do it. But I also like to think about, like, I'm actually able to help support them and their family along this path too. I can't tell you how it feels great. Like, so Nais lives in the Philippines, and like what we pay her is really good for somebody who lives in the Philippines. It's actually pretty good for somebody who lives here too. But knowing that we are impacting her family, she's able to get Christmas presents. She's able to pay for her food and her shelter and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm all in with that, right? And so I focus my time and attention on like, yes, we keep utilizing her because she's a part of the team and we can help empower them too. So yes, there is this idea of like, we can trade it, especially in the beginning. If it's like one of these trades where we're getting higher quality from it and they're getting high quality too. That's the ethical part, right? But also, like, how can you get stuff off your plate? Carmen, I know you. You're the kind who's like, how can I do even more? Oh, guess what I could do? I could trade 5 hours worth of training so that somebody could do 5 hours worth of this. And when you think about that, like, is that the best use of your time? I don't know if it is or not. That's a question that you have to ask yourself. Is that really the best use of my time right now? What if it's stuff I already have made? Would I find out how much I can pay? Yeah, I should find out. Yes, you definitely should, because there's a couple different types of VAs. We'll talk about this later. There's VAs who are like within the United States. They're a little bit more expensive. They can specialize in different things. And there's VAs that you can get who are inside of the Philippines, that are outside of the United States, that you can help. And they're going to be a lot less when it comes to monetary value, but they're going to not be able to do many of the things that maybe you want them to do, right? So most VAs who are from the Philippines are not going to be able to get us the same high quality kind of video editing and audio editing and all the things that Kurt's able to do, because that's just not what they specialize in. They specialize in doing more of the day-to-day activities of social media and posting stuff and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But yes, you could definitely like really dive into this subject a little bit further, and we will next week as well. But these are just all questions that we want you to be asking yourself. So like Teresa said, when you're ready, we'll define when ready is, and then take whatever those next steps are, because as long as you do something, you're at least going to figure out whether or not it's working. Okay, let's jump into number 2, Teresa. I got a little bit too long-winded on that one.
No, I did too. Okay, so the second one is, I want you to ask yourself these questions, and maybe they can be put up on the screen. So what impact will it make when you don't have to do everything yourself? And also, how much less stress would you have if someone else was taking action in your business for you? So let's start with the first question. Like, what kind of impact can this make if you're not doing everything yourself? Think about your family. Think about the impact that it will have on your family, because you're not going to be doing all the things, right? You'll have more time and energy to devote to your family or whatever else is important in your life. So think about what that impact will be and how much less stress this is going to be, right? It is very stressful to be juggling multiple plates at the same time. I mean, if you're a parent, if you work a full-time job and you're still running a business, if you have to take care of a parent, I mean, there's so many different things that people have going on, and taking like even the littlest things off of your plate can start to give you a little bit more confidence, because it's one less thing you have to worry about, and it's less stress on you, so that you can focus on the other things. And when you're less stressed, you have better energy, you'll probably be in a better mood, you can think more clearly. So the benefits of all of this are, unlimited, right? But just think about that and maybe write them down. Write down what impact that will make, and write down how much less stress it'll be on you.
All right, you want to jump into the next one?
Yeah. So number 3 is, what will it give you the ability of doing instead? Okay. So now that you've decided, okay, I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I know this is going to be a huge impact on my family. It's going to make me a lot less stress. Like, what is this going to help me do? And usually like writing it down is very helpful. Like, what is this going to allow me to do? A lot of it is regarding time, but there's a lot of other things that we can do, right? Because if you have more energy to do things, you'll have more mental clarity, you'll be more creative, and you'll come up with things that you can, either give out for free or even, sell, that will bring in more income. So think about what this is going to allow you to do instead. Maybe you've been wanting to actually do a course so that you can keep growing. Maybe with the less time that you're going to be spending on things that don't really matter or move the needle forward, you'll be able to dedicate that time to a course so that you can keep progressing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And we're gonna keep going. I could keep adding to that. I'm sure you can too. But I love that because it kind of sets you up. For anybody who's gone through the life coach certification, you know that what we're doing is we're focusing on your stories right now, right? We're focusing on realizing the awesomeness, your heart voice of like what's going to happen when you do this. All right. We always like to set up things like that because when you lean into that, you can see the real potential, right? Our head voice is going to say, we don't have the money, the time, the energy. We don't know how to do this. We've never done it before. We don't have a successful business yet. Blah, 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 all those things that we're actually going to manifest, right? But when we lean into our heart, we'll actually go out there. We'll find people, we'll recruit people. We'll be able to have amazing people like Kurt and Nais and people on our team. We're going to like feel like dividing and conquering. What is it going to feel like when it doesn't come down to you anymore? That it feels pretty amazing, all right? So definitely ask yourself those questions. And anytime you jump back into, well, I don't think I'm ready yet, go back and re-watch this, the beginning part, and really dive into those questions because it's so important, all right? Now we're going to move on. Amber asked a really great question, and we're going to actually answer it over the next three kind of like points that we have here because it's a really great question. I think she asked something like, hey, should I train somebody to do this? Whether it's like buying selling my program, or should I train her as a VA? Should I train her as a video editor or whatever? I'm going to answer all that for you right here today. And I'm so glad you asked that because that question is such a key and vital part that if you approach this in the wrong way, you're going to waste a lot of time, money, and energy. You're going to be super frustrated. Okay. So number one is like, where do you find people? So people ask us this all the time. Okay, Mark, like I'm ready to go. You sold me. All right. Which is kind of crazy because I'm just selling you an idea. I'm not making any money from this. Right. They're like, you sold me. What do I do? So where do I find people? There's many different ways. Number one is like agency websites. So we found Nais through a website that was, I actually forget the name of it. I don't even know it still exists, where I was looking for virtual assistants and they would help do an interview process and find people. It costs money to do that, of course, come up with a contract and all that kind of stuff. All right. There's that part. There's that way. But then there's also like social media, like asking your friends, like, hey, who are you using as a VA or video editor or anything like that? Like, of course, we have Kurt. So people ask us like, hey, how can we get Kurt to work with us? He has a few openings. And when he does, we make sure that we share that, right? Because we have somebody that not only has been like taught and trained, but also like knows things better than even us and going to be able to like not only share like video editing and audio podcasting, but all the behind the scenes from what's happening in our business, right? And so people want to gain access to that. And you're like 1 degree of separation from other people, right? So asking people like, hey, who do you use, right? Who do you use for this or for that? And really connecting with them that way. You can find things like LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn has a lot of different professionals who are looking to become virtual assistants, right? You can find friends, you can find family. Think about this. Like, what if you had somebody who is in your family, they're getting to the point where they're becoming of working age or they're already working age, they're having difficulty with their job, they hate it. Like, what could you do to like outsource it to them for like maybe 4, 5, 10, 15 hours a week? Teresa said this in the beginning, but you don't have to hire somebody for 40 hours a week. As a matter of fact, I recommend you don't. Because if you hire just somebody out of the blue for 40 hours a week and you're going to be scrambling and you're not going to have enough actually things to give them for 40 hours a week, right? I know I don't even work 40 hours a week. So how am I going to give somebody else 40 hours worth of work, right? So I started out with like hiring somebody for like 5, 10, 15 hours a week. Nais first started with like 20 hours a week. And I gave her things and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, can you work 40 hours? But it's also like a trial period, guys. You don't want to just say, hey, you're going to be on my team for the rest of your life. No, they got to prove that they're, what we're going to talk about here today, actually willing to lean in and willing to be a part of the team, all right? So there's multiple different ways to find people. Use any of those different tips and strategies. If you have any questions about that, definitely reach out, all right? The next question is, what type of position am I recruiting for? Amber, this is what you need to like really think about. What type of position am I recruiting for? Am I looking for a virtual assistant? Somebody to send social media messages, somebody to like answer my emails, somebody that I can give canned responses to so they can reply. If you hire a VA, they're not going to be editing your videos. Every once in a while, you'll get a gem, and that guy's name is Kurt, where you hire somebody for helping you do some of that stuff, and you're like, dude, you rock it over here. And he's like, yeah, I'm a professional DJ. I'm like, what in the world? Let's get you out of these messages and into my life over here, all right? So when you're hiring people, you got to realize that you're not hiring somebody to come in and take over all of your positions. You're hiring based off of one simple thing. So some virtual assistants will be like really good at being able to like post on social media. But if now you ask them to do things beyond that and they're not capable of that, you've like talked to them, you found out, you asked them, which I'll give you some questions in a minute, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and you just start giving them more things. Oh, sell my program, and they have no sales background. You cannot expect a VA to do that. You have to make sure you're really upfront, having great conversations and finding somebody to fit the job that you need. Now, a virtual assistant is a great place to start, but having a conversation and seeing what they've done in the past, what kind of things they're really good at, what are things outside of virtual assistant stuff that they really enjoy, like getting to know them so that you can see like, this person's really good at this, but they're not good at this. Guys, you're not going to have a virtual assistant who's going to be able to just come in and run your entire program, all right? They're not going to be able to do the coaching aspects and the sales and the marketing, because you know what? They'd have a business themselves that would be just like yours if they could, right? Their job is to you find them and help put them in a position that they're going to be really good at, but then don't expect them to be like the jack of all trades. If you find somebody who's the jack of all trades, that's going to be a lot more expensive. If you're willing to do that, jump all in and do that, right? But if you're finding somebody who you want to get like the cheapest price possible, but you want to be able to have a teammate, you have to understand that you are going to get somebody who's just very specialized in a very specific area, which means they're going to need scripts. They're not going to be able to figure out how to use sales psychology to close somebody, all right? They're not going to have all those tips and tools and strategies that you have. You can teach them a little bit about it, but in reality, remember to keep them in your lane and you stay in your lane, all right? So I said, if you're looking for a VA, don't expect, okay, yes. So make sure that you're hiring somebody for that specific position, all right? And how you can do this is just ask them some of the things they've done before. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they love doing? And what do they hate doing? Please ask them that last part. What do they love doing and what do they hate doing? If they hate sending messages to people, please don't make them send messages, because the energy is going to be crap, right? But if they're like Nais, they're like, I don't care. Like, give me a script. I'll send it to 80,000 people today. I'm like, thank you so much, because I don't want to do that, right? And so that is taken off my hands, right? But it's also something that she's capable of doing, and I've seen her do it, and she told me beforehand that she's capable of doing it. Is she able to edit my podcast? No, she's not, right? So finding stuff within their strength zone and having a conversation, which I highly suggest you do, Amber, is like getting to know them a little bit and seeing what it is that they've done in the past. What are some things they like doing? What are some things they hate doing? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And really diving into that and seeing if there's a spot for you to actually help them out, all right? That's why a lot of people start with virtual assistants, because they're like, they can do a lot of various things, but just not things that require like the CEO hat on. You're not hiring a CEO. Like if you're hiring a CEO for your business, you should expect them to do that. But if you're hiring a VA, they're probably not going to be your CEO, okay? All right. Characteristics to look for in a teammate. This is the next one. I know we kind of talked about like the activities that they could do, but what I found to be the most important is the characteristics that you look for in a teammate, which means you should do an interview of the person first. I'm sure that you guys have all experienced this when it comes to like even some of your customers, where you're so excited you get them in, and then when you get them in, you realize what some of their character traits, what some of their personalities, they're not good with other humans. They're not good at communicating. They don't really care about the team. You want to get to those really, really early. Now I'm going to list some questions, some sample questions that you can ask them, but I highly suggest that you interview them, you have a conversation with them, and you see if they're a great fit. Now, when Teresa and I interviewed Kurt, I immediately knew just from the conversation, like, this is my guy. Like, he's going to be on our team. Like, he may not even know it, but he's going to say yes to me, right? And so I believe bridged him into getting him on the team. And then guess what? Like, a year later, he was going to be disconnected. Like, he was going to disconnect from what we were doing at that specific moment. And I'm like, sorry, brother, but you're not. Like, let me find a new way to, like, really get you on the team long term. Because initially, he had been connected to me from a VA company. And so I was having that conversation. The reason why is because I knew him as a person. I knew his personality. I knew his desire. I knew like he was a part of the mission. He wasn't just doing work for us. He was a part of the mission, still is a part of the mission. And when I realized that, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to really keep him on the team? And so we worked something out so that he could be and continue to be a part of the team. That's the kind of teammates that you want. And you can't do that if you're just like looking at somebody's resume and not having an interview with them, all right? So here's some questions that I would highly make sure that you ask people if you're getting somebody to join your team. Number one is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are your personal goals? And what does your family look like? That's what I want to know. I want to know, like, tell me what your personal goals are. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And what does your family look like? I want to get to know the person on a human level first. Like, I don't want to go in there and go, hey, let's just talk all about business and my business. No, I want to hear them. And it's crazy, like when you start talking about them and their family, they just open up, because that's what we're supposed to do as humans. We're not supposed to just go in there and just tell them all the things that we want in our business, right? I actually want to hear and connect with them, right? So I want to know a little bit about them. Next one is, what excites you the most about working with us? What excites you the most about working with us? This is a really great question because you're going to see if they did a little bit of research. You're going to see if like they're like, you know what excites me is like you have this like modern leadership YouTube channel where you're making this huge impact for entrepreneurs. I really love to be a part of that. Like I love what you got going on. I would also love to see the behind the scenes of what you do on YouTube because I'm creating my own YouTube channel. Like those are things that I want to like hear rather than I'm just looking for like, you know, some money to make during the you know, the summertime or something like that, right? So really getting to the deep part of like why they want to work with us. The next one is, why do you feel that you're a good fit for the team? Why do you feel you're a good fit for the team? I like this one because it really helps connect them to like, why do you actually feel like you're a good fit for this? I actually do this for my programs too, guys. So if like, let's say I'm getting somebody to be a one-on-one client, right? First off, I probably say no to a lot more people than I would say yes to. And the reason why is because I want to actually work with the people that I want to work with. And so when I'm having a conversation or when I'm having like, I put up some kind of like application, I ask them, why is it that you want to work with me? Because I want to know. I want to know what they're going to say. And I also, especially if they're working for the business or the company, I want them to know that that it's important to me, like why they want to work with me, but also like what their specific goals are. All right. So that's another question. Next one is, what is something about yourself that you like to work on? Actually, I think I skipped one. What is something about yourself that you like to work on? I want to let them know that it's okay to have strengths, but it's also okay to have weaknesses. And I'm going to be here to help them do that. All right. As a leader, you want your people to know that you're not just there for your own personal success. Like if you are always leading with your personal success, like you need to reframe that and figure out like how can you bring them into the situation too. So I'll ask them, what is something about yourself that you'd like to work on? It scares me when somebody says nothing because they think that they have to have their armor on, which we're reading about in Dare to Lead by Brene Brown in our book club, but they feel like they have to have their armor on and they can't tell me the truth. And I'm like, no, seriously, like what is something you want to improve on? Because I want to help you. I can't, if you're on this team, I'm not just going to get you to work like and do the stuff that I need. I want to get you to the next level of your success. What do you want to work on? And doing that, being able to lean in and hear them, it gets me to realize like what I can do to actually help impact them while they're on the team. The next one, actually kind of went in reverse, is like, what is your greatest strengths? I do want to ask them, like, what are your greatest strengths? What are some things you're really great at? What are some things like you really love doing? Like those kind of things, so I can pull out and find what are some of the things they enjoy, all right? Next one is, are you open to growth and taking on additional assignments as the business grows? This is one that we asked Kurt, and he's like, I'm all in, right? You're going to want to test to see if that person's like, hey, you know what? Like I am open to growing, but like this is the area that I want to focus on. This is the area I want to spend time on. When I found Kurt and he was like, I'm open for anything. Like I want to continue to grow myself and my own personal business while being able to help modern leadership. And so when you find somebody like that, you got to realize like this is freaking really powerful because I've found somebody who's really open to growth. All right. And Kurt just said, what excited me the most when I started with Mark and Teresa was the opportunity to learn about business. And I've learned so much. Basically, you're willing to grow with us. Yes, 100%. And I appreciate you for that, man. Okay. Next one is, are there any limitations that you'd like us to know about? Are there any limitations that you'd like us to know about? So some people are like, they don't have good internet. Their time, like the specific time frame that they can do it is like limited. They've got kids between this time and this time, so they can't work this. They can't do things on the weekend. They can't, like, I want to know all of it up front, right? And it's not there's something wrong or I'm going to say no. I just want to know, like, what are some of the limitations? Like, is there certain hours you can't work? Is there certain holidays or things that you can't do, right? I want to make sure that I'm meeting them in a place where I understand where they're coming from and whether or not it's going to be a really good fit, all right? And then the last one is there anything you'd like to ask us? Is there anything you'd like to ask us? The reason why I hit this up is because I don't want this just to be an interview, me asking you questions. I want you to be able to ask me questions. Remember, the best opportunity to lead and influence people is by asking or by like modeling the behavior and allowing them in that specific moment to ask me questions about me, my goals, our business, like whatever. Like I want to be completely open and transparent. So I'll ask that. Like, what are some questions that you would like to ask us? All right. So those are some really great questions. You don't have to answer or ask them all or anything like that. But there just gives you an idea. So when you're having this conversation with somebody, you get to know them. I think the real pattern here, guys, is get to know someone before you actually like hire them for 5, 10, 15 hours a week, however long, right? Get to know them so that you can understand like if they're a great fit for you or not. Don't just, oh, this person wants to work for me and then immediately take action, all right? I can tell you that that's not the best solution. The best solution is to get to know them and get them to see if they're going to be a really great fit for your team or not. All right, Teresa, you're up.
Okay. So number 7 is to keep them in their strength zone. I cannot talk today. I'm sorry. So keeping them in their strength zone. So this is why it's important to ask them what their strengths are, right? Because you want to give them tasks that they will, basically you want to set them up for success, right? Because the worst thing you could do is for them to tell you that, hey, I'm really good at this, but I'm not so great at this. And then you give them tasks that they're not really great at. So they're going to feel demoralized. They're not going to feel great about what they're doing. And then you're not going to get you're not going to get anything in return that's of value. So it's a losing situation if you don't first find out what their strengths are and then give them things to do that are based on their strengths. You know, you'll really set them up for success if you really focus on that, and then they're going to grow, right? If they continue with you, they're going to grow along with you, and then you can give them other things, and they'll build strength in other areas. But make sure that you do that. Make sure that you focus on their strengths.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. The next one is, what type of activities can you give them to start out? So a lot of people ask this question, like, what kind of activities can you give them to start out? Now, normally what Teresa and I will do, we'll like write out we'll use the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? What are the 20% activities that move the needle the most in your business? And what of those can you outsource to someone else, right? The other 80%, you can outsource them, you can stop them or eliminate them, like the things that don't move the needle a lot, right? Some of the things you're going to have to still do, and anything that you can take off of your plate to give you time to spend energy in the income producing activities is important. Like a lot of people, when they first hire somebody, what they want to do is they want to try and outsource all the income producing activities. But remember, that's the hard part, right? That's usually the part that you have to get control of first. Is other people aren't just going to randomly be able to sell your program and have conversations if they've never heard of your program before and they just got hired, unless you hire somebody who actually has sales experience, and you're going to be paying a lot more money for that, right? So instead, one of two things. Number one is you hire people and you give them activities that free you up to do the income producing activities. Or when you get a big enough team, you start hiring people to do the income producing activities so that you don't have to do it as often. Example of this. So in our business, like I hire people to take things off my plate so that I can do the income producing activities. I can only have a one-on-one with people. Like Teresa can only have a one-on-one with people. Like we can put together coaching programs. We put together a life coaching certification, right? We can't expect Kurt to do that. But when it comes to like Josh's business, for example, where I'm a part of that, right? What we do is we also have a sales team. So we hire people to sell our programs and we give them a good commission for doing so that we don't have to do it because of the sheer number of people. When I'm doing stuff in our business, it's a much smaller number than Josh's 35,000 people on his email list and, 500 people in this program and whatever. Like it's much more where he got to his point. He's like, okay, first, I'm going to hire somebody to take all the activities out so I can do the things that I need to do to get money, right? But when you get to that next level, when you get to the $1 million mark, you're not doing all of the selling. You're actually either doing webinars where you have a big thing and then having all your teammates behind the scenes do it, or you're building a sales team, right? So it really depends on where you're at, but generally you don't start with a sales team. You start with somebody to take this stuff off so that you can go through the growth experience of selling your program. Remember, your goal isn't to just hire somebody to fix all of your problems. Your goal is to hire somebody to take stuff off your plate so that you can solve those problems and figure out what those next steps are, okay? All right, the next one, it's you, Teresa. Number 9.
Okay, so number 9 is a trial period, maybe 30 days. So you don't need to give someone 40 hours, like we said. Some people start off with 4 or 5 hours a week. Just make sure that you communicate this up front. Like, this is really important. A lot of things, and this going through this process is really going to help you learn how to be very specific with people and how to communicate really well with people, because people need to know exactly what it is that you want them to do. And like this trial period is, for both of you. right? For you as the business owner, and for them as the VA, or the person on your team, to really get a sense of whether or not you're a good fit, because sometimes it's not going to work out, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with them. You're just not, you just don't vibe maybe, or there's just something that doesn't work well between the two of you, or maybe like what you thought they would be really good at, maybe it's just not working out. So that gives you the ability to not like get committed to something that you really can't get out of, right? So there could be a contract involved. There could be just like, hey, a verbal agreement, like, hey, for 30 days, we're going to test this out, see if this is actually going to work out. And then after the 30 days, we'll evaluate and we'll see if we can do this more long term. So that gives you the ability to really find out, how this is all going to work out. And if it doesn't, it's okay, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay.
All right. Yep. Go to the next one. That was great.
Okay. So this one, some of you may not have this yet, but it's really important at some point, if you have a business, to have an accountant and to talk to them, because there are a lot of things, not only that you buy, things that you use that are tax write-offs. So someone who is working for you, there's intricacies in that, and an accountant is the best person rather than trying to Google it. Right? Mm-hmm. They're the professionals, and you do not want to mess with the IRS. So that is super important. So talk to your accountant if there are certain things in your business that you use or that you've bought that can be a tax write-off.
100%. Yeah, and your VA can absolutely be a tax write-off. You just got to make sure that you connect with an accountant who tells you and explains how that works, how to pay them properly. For us, we use like PayPal, and we have a direct, it's just a business account, so people know when that's coming out, and so that we can send at the end of the year how much we actually paid out, and we can actually have is it a 1099? I think it's a 1099 that we send out to Kurt to basically say how much we paid him that year. It is a huge tax write-off, guys. So don't forget, you're paying for somebody to work in your business, but it's actually going to save you a ton of money on your car insurance. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to save you a ton of money, okay? So remember to keep track of that, because that is a business expense, all right? Now, Teresa also talked a little bit about contracts. We're not going to go deep into contracts because we're not accountants, and we're also not like tax professionals. I know that Teresa connected with an incredible accountant on her podcast. I think it's called the Creative Law Shop. Isn't that what it's called, Teresa?
She's an attorney, not an accountant.
Right. There you go. An attorney. But wasn't her name like Creative Law Shop or something like that?
I think so. Yeah. Her name is Paige.
Yes. So if you do a search, she also has like contracts. If you want to actually, put together a contract for your VA, what I highly suggest is, if you do nothing at all, at least send an agreement or something over email. All right. And I would highly suggest for this last part is it's a 30-day temporary thing, meaning you're going to be tested out for 30 days. If this works, we'll talk about what that will look like in the future. But if not, there'll be no worries either on their part or your part. Make sure that you're clear about that, right? Because it's not just you deciding, it's also them, because maybe they hate doing that work and they don't want to work for you, right? So you want them to know that this is for both of us. So if we get to the end of this and we want it and you don't, this is totally cool. We're going to completely separate. But at the same time, the vice versa works too, right? So do something at least over email so that at least it's documented somewhere. But we, of course, we go to that Creative Law Shop from Paige, and we download one of them, and you just insert some of the things, and she'll send you like a blank one that has like specific words that you want to do, and we just like copy and paste. It's like super. It's not too expensive to actually get it, and then you actually have a legit contract. All right, that's something that we did when we went like full time with Kurt. All right. All right, so that was the how to find portion. Now we're going to jump into training, and we're going to kind of speed this up because it's already been 50 minutes, all right? So I'm going to go through these next 5 super, super fast, all right? Training is such an important part of the process. If there's any time, and this hasn't happened with Kurt, but if there's any time that he doesn't know how to do something, or he's struggling with something, or it doesn't turn out the way that it's supposed to turn out, it's my fault, not his. This is a really big CEO kind of like moment where it is your responsibility to teach, train, set boundaries, hold them accountable, and put it all together. If there is an issue, it is my fault, and I got to figure out how to fix it by getting more training, by thinking outside the box. It is never Kurt or Nais's fault. And so the reason why I take that approach is because it's my job to train them. They don't just get hired in and immediately know exactly how to communicate and how to send messages and what should they respond and all those kind of things. What's crazy though is now a lot of you guys have conversations with me, but it's not me. It's actually Nais or Kurt who are in my messages because they've gotten so good at communicating. They're just like me. It's like Mark, 3.0, except for they don't overthink it like how I do. So a lot of times you won't even realize it, but you're having conversations with them inside of my inbox. But that doesn't happen from the beginning, right? You have to be willing to train them. So the first one is how to train them. What I found to be the best way is to, first off, figure out like where and how best they like to be trained. Some people like videos and those kind of things. Some people like to see notes and stuff that are written out step by step. For me personally, I'll always do those two things. I'll put together a video. So if I have, I'm teaching Kurt how to do something, right? I'm like, hey brother, I want to show you something that I found today, this new thing that I would love if you could take over, okay? So here's how you do it. And I literally record my screen, show him, talk to him, send it to him, and I also keep it for the future. Number one, so he can go back and rewatch it. But number two is if we get a bigger team, which we will, and Kurt's no longer doing that, Kurt's going to be able to go, oh, let's go back and send him that video that you sent me, right? And so we have a place where I kind of store it so that we can do it in the future. So I like to walk people through it, get them to see it. I'll even do it for my phone. If I'm going through, for example, you're giving people messages to send, right? You're like, can you go into my messages and can you go into my stories or go into my posts and send messages to people? Well, how do you do that? And who do you want them to send messages to? Otherwise, you're your mom's probably going to get messages and all this kind of stuff. So you want to show them, you want to record your screen and go, okay, this is what I would do. I would go to this page, which has a lot of my followers. I'd click on it and I would scroll down and see this one. This one looks like spam, so we don't want to send them a message. But let's keep going. You see this one? This one is they're a coach or they're an MLM or whatever. That's our target audience. So I would click on them and I literally walk them through it because there's so many things that you do automatically you don't even realize until you're trying to teach somebody. And you're like, I didn't even realize that, right? I just told them to go out and send 20 messages. And they sent messages to 20 random dudes or 20 people who have naked pictures on their posts, right? It's no, I don't want them to do that. So you have to teach them. That would be my fault. And I would have to go out and think about how I can record it, all right? I also like to keep a note. It's inside of Evernote is the program that I use where it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. So as we go with Nais, when I update or change something, I'm like, hey, Nais, could you do this instead of this? Could you send this message instead of this message? Basically what I'll do is I will go into Evernote and I'll update her daily to-do list. So that number one, I can see where she's at and what she's doing. But also number two is she sees that it's updated and it doesn't, I don't just leave it to her chance that she does it, but that it has all the steps that she needs, right? So any way that you can do that, definitely do a video of it, send them that video and obviously make sure you keep it. But if somebody's really they like the step-by-step checklist, definitely make that too. That's just how my brain works, so I like to use it. It's also how Kurt's brain works, so that we like to really do that where it's both of those things. But anytime that I feel I need to, let's say, give them as much information as possible and train them, I try to record the screen or do a video, right? Number two is when you're training, make sure you're sharing the why with them. Just send 20 messages is not as helpful as hey, this is what we're doing. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recruit for this book club because in the book club, we're going to be able to help people, entrepreneurs, really not only grow exponentially, but also help each other out in the process. All right. So our goal here is to help make a huge impact in people's lives, the entrepreneurs out there who are struggling and they need to grow. All right. So if you could send 20 messages to people that you think would fit this, that would be awesome because it's going to make a huge impact in their life, in their business life, and in their family, right? So I want to share the why behind it. So if I'm sharing hey, Kurt, can you do this to the YouTube videos? I'm not just going to say, hey, bro, can you do this to the YouTube videos? I'm going to be hey, I've been thinking about this. I want to get your thoughts on it too. What if we did this, this, and this? My goal is to do this, this, and this, and this, but I don't know if that's going to actually hit that. What do you think? And I'm using it as a tool because number one, I want to hear back from him. But number two is I want him to know the why. So don't just give people tasks, also explain to them the reason behind their task. And they'll be more likely to go, oh, this is important. Remember, they're going to get into their heart voice rather than just checking the box, all right? The next one is help them achieve their own goals too. So when I'm training, I always constantly try to ask Kurt, and I can probably be better at this, what can I do to actually help you improve in whatever area, or help you build your business, or help you get more views on YouTube, or help you. I try to do that all the time because I don't want this to just be about my business. I want this to be about the team. All right. I do not want to succeed at the cost of somebody else. That is not a team. That is like an individual race. This is for us a marathon, but we're all like able to pass the baton back and forth to each other, right? So anything that I can do to help him, even in personal life, I'm all in, because that's the kind of team that I want to have. I don't want to have a team where it's just about business and just about what I'm doing, right? I always want to think about like what I can teach or train him to do that'll help him impact him in his business. I'm not just teaching him things to do here. Sometimes he's like, hey, like, how about this, or X, Y, and Z, or what do you think about this contract? And I'm like, I'm all in, because I'm really good at like writing and copy and stuff like that. I'm all in with helping him, even if it's not something related to the business, because we're a team. This is the way that it works, right? My brain doesn't even go like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's definitely do this. I want to do whatever I possibly can so that we can all achieve massive success, right? So make sure that when you're training them, you're not just training them on what they need to do for your business, even though that's important, right? But also train them on different ways that you can actually help expand them and make them even better for their own personal life and personal business, right? Number 4 is invest your time and energy into them so they can grow. What? Yes, I will purchase training programs. I will upgrade computers. I will do whatever I physically can to invest my time and energy into both me, my business, and my team. I'm willing to buy and pay for a program, a training program, if it's going to really help out the team, even if it's not something I watch, because I'm looking for exponential growth in all of us. And there's no better investment, and once again, it's a tax write-off, than doing that, right? So if I'm willing to invest into a program that's going to get us even more views on YouTube, and it's something that I can watch and Kurt can watch, I'm all in with that, all right? So these are different ways you can think about training that's outside of the norm of just what normal people do, which is just train them in what they're supposed to do, but also like continuing to expand their growth. Don't expect them to be related to personal growth and be wanting to grow. Like a lot of us are coaches and entrepreneurs, we're like really knee deep into growth, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is, right? And if you can take the control of that, if you can help steer them in that direction to get into personal growth, 100% do that, all right? Number 5 is keep looking if you find they aren't a good fit. Guys, not only will a bad fit be wrong for you and your business, it'll also be wrong for them. Because if you start feeling resentful, angry, upset, you get frustrated by them, you're going to be reacting and not teaching them, but having conversations with them and treating them in a way that they shouldn't be treated. So not only is it not good for your business as a business decision to keep somebody working for you that's not cutting it, but it's also not good for them because you're not probably showing up the way that you want to show up for as a leader. Now, for me personally, I try to do whatever I can. I would do. I haven't ran into this situation, but I would try to do anything I could to really help them. I've coached lots of people through this situation themselves. Some people haven't tried anything and they're just ready to get rid of them. Like, well, that doesn't really serve the purpose. Like, how about you try and lead them first? And there's some people who just keep trying and trying and trying. They're going to get better. They're going to get better. And it's been like 3 years and it's time to find somebody else, right? So like they say, take hiring slow, but take firing fast. So hire slow and fire fast, right? So when you do get to that point where you're like, I've tried so many different things, this really isn't working out. It's time to have that difficult conversation and then go look for somebody else. It doesn't mean that maybe you shouldn't do this anymore. You're going to get this feeling of like, oh, maybe I could just do it all myself again. You're going to be trapped in that same exact situation. Keep looking for somebody that will work. All right, number 6, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to speed through these a little bit. And this one, Mark kind of touched on it already, and that is explain the why behind things. And not just explaining the why behind the tasks that you're giving them, but explaining the why behind your business. Like, you want to have their buy-in as well. They will get excited about your mission. So share the mission and the vision with your teammates, because you know, we do our best when we feel good about like the greater good, or, you know, the mission or something that is bigger than us. Like, we will get excited about that and we will do our best work if we're all in, right? So explaining the why behind things is really important. Number 7 is to give feedback. And it's not not always negative, please. If it gets to the point where it feels like you're going to give feedback and it's all negative, then it's time to separate, because that is not good. People don't want to hear just negative things. Obviously, you want to, praise people. You want to give them positive feedback. But you also, you want to have a balance, and it's not like negative feedback, like, oh my gosh, you suck. Like, please don't do that. It's more of like, hey, maybe this is an area that we can work on a little bit better, and then give people feedback. Like, you really want to be open with people and make sure that they understand that there's something that needs to be fixed, or you just be open with them. Okay, number 8 is ask them for feedback. And Mark touched on this as well, is you wanted to know what you want to get critiqued, right? And if you create an environment where people feel comfortable to actually give you feedback, that is awesome, because you do want that feedback, and you want people to be comfortable with actually giving you feedback, because that is super valuable, because we have blind spots. And if they're going in there because you're actually giving them tasks to work in your business, because you're working on your business, you want to get that feedback, because they know like the intricacies, and they know what's going on, and getting feedback from them is super valuable.
Can I just share on one thing on that?
Yeah.
Real quick. So guys, when we're doing that, if we want them to be willing to accept our feedback, we have to be willing to accept theirs. So do not poo-poo it, push it to the side, not think about it. If you honestly want them to accept your feedback, you have to be willing to accept theirs too. How can I improve? When you find that like I'm most on point and I'm most helpful for you, what am I doing? What am I saying? Like when I'm training you, like what is it that I do that you really love? And what is it that I do that you don't like, that you're like, this actually doesn't help, right? Be willing to like accept that, because if you're not willing to accept that, they're not going to be willing to accept it either. Okay, sorry about that. Is there a fly down there? Yeah. Okay, your turn.
Okay, so number 9 is to acknowledge and appreciate them as often as possible. They're not going to always want like just feedback regarding the business, right? It's about really appreciating people and expressing that explicitly. There are people who really, really thrive with, affirmations, or like words of affirmation. So being open and like appreciative to people is really important. You can make someone's day by just sharing that, they're a super valuable part of the team, and just be open with them.
And that's like my next point. My next point is to make sure that they are a part of the team. So when you have difficult conversations, when you have like things that you really need to tackle, decisions that need to be made, you should probably be running it. And I say probably, but I mean you should be running it by them as well. You don't have to take their opinion or whatever and take action on it. But I really do highly suggest that you ask for their opinion. If I have something big that's like going on, or something that's happening in my personal life or my business, like specifically, like I'm going to make this big decision, Kurt's a part of that. All right. I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to tell him about it. I'm going to give him some ideas because I want to hear his perspective. I'm also going to be talking to Teresa, but ultimately it will fall down on me, but I want them to feel like they're a part of the team. And if I decide to not go in alignment with them, which a lot of times I don't, I decide to align with them. I explain to them why, and I give them the why behind why I made that decision, not just hey, I listened to you and I decided this way, but this is my thought process behind it, because there's actually a lot of teaching and process that goes behind there. So make sure that anytime you can, make them feel like a part of the team. All right. If you guys haven't told, I mean, a lot of you guys have been watching a lot of our replays here. How many times do you guys hear me talking about Kurt, Nais, Teresa? It's a lot, because it's not just Mark. It's not just Modern Leadership. It's like the team. And so I want them to feel like they're a part of the team. They're in my emails. They're in my podcast. They're like, I talk about them on my YouTube channel, because we're a team. Like, we're going to succeed together, right? So anything you can do to make you guys feel like a team, it's so powerful, because then you're just all on the same page. Now, one thing that Teresa talked about, like acknowledge and appreciating them, is what you want to be repeated definitely needs to be recognized, right? So if you recognize that somebody worked their butt off, even though the end product wasn't great, you should recognize them for working their butt off, right? You should recognizing them for wanting to get better. You should recognize them for showing up and doing X, Y, and Z, because what you recognize will definitely continue to get repeated. So definitely appreciating and acknowledging them for those things. And here's the thing, like even if something turns out terrible, there's always something you can acknowledge and appreciate them, okay? All right, the next one is to challenge each other, Now, this is one of those things where if the person's personality is like this, you definitely can challenge each other. Whether you challenge your team and you say, hey guys, if we have 50 signups this month, this is what we're going to get. You guys are going to get like a $250 gift card. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. So if you can come up with like challenges or incentives or things that make you work together as a team, it's super powerful. So if I have like a big launch that's going on, I'll tell Nais and Kurt and my kids, I even get my kids involved. And I'm like, hey guys, if we get this amount, this is what we're going to be able to do. My kids are like all in and they're like, Dad, can we not play today? Can you just go upstairs and work more? And I'm like, no, come on, guys. But they're like so all into it, but then so is the team. And then Kurt's saying, hey, what do you think about this? And then just the ideas are flowing because we're like all different people and we all have different ideas and different times where we're on point. So if you can make it a challenge, it's so awesome to lean into that, all right? Now, there's some people who don't enjoy challenges. And if that's the case, that's just figure out different creative ways to get people incentivized and make them to feel like part of the team. All right, this last part is delegating. We're going to go through this really, really quick, but this is super important and powerful, especially for anybody who does have a teammate or you're thinking about getting a teammate. If you don't do this part, like it's going to be all for nothing. You're just going to be paying for somebody to be on your team and you're not going to be able to be taking things off your plate, but also be able to lean in and exponentially be more productive and grow your business, all right? So the first thing is asking them what are some things they would love to be more a part of, okay? So a lot of times, like even when we have somebody who's on our team and they're doing something, there's things that they would really love to do, right? And if we can ask them this question like, hey, what are some things that you really love to do that you would love to be more of a part of here? It gives us an opportunity to see past what we initially thought. Example. So when I first hired my first VA, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this stuff related to them sending messages. And so they were sending messages and I'm like, what else could I give them? Like, I don't really know. And instead of me deciding, I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, Nice, what are some things that you could see yourself doing that you either love to do or that you think would be really helpful to take off my plate so I can do these other things? And she was like, oh, I can upload the details of your podcast as long as you show me how to do that. I'm like, that's cool. That's going to save me like 2 or 3 hours a week, right? And then she's like, oh, how about this? Or how about that? How about if we do this or that? And I'm like, all of these ideas, I'm like, yes, let's do all of those things, right? And so asking them, not only does it make them a part of the team, but there's also things that they're watching you do. And they're like, you know what? I would love to do that. That'd be awesome if I could do that part, right? And by asking this question, you'll have things that come up that you didn't even realize. Like usually when you first get started, it's like, it's easy to delegate the first 2 or 3 things because you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I hate doing that. But other than that, like you don't want to get stuck in that. That's why you want to have great questions to be able to ask so that you can help get some of those other things off your plate you never would have thought of if you hadn't asked, all right? The next one is look for opportunities for them to step up and take on leadership roles. Anytime I can, I try to get people on our team involved in more leadership roles, meaning things that I typically feel like I should be doing, but in reality, I want to empower them to do it as well. These are like even key things like, changing up some of the messaging that we have or changing up some of the different things that typically I would do because I'm like really good at some of this stuff. But anytime I can empower somebody to step up and to lead, even just like this, like sending a message to Kurt going, hey, I want to come up with like a really powerful idea for the next workshop. What are some things that you would love to see? And then he now gets into the thought process of like, well, how about this? How about this? How about this? And if you guys haven't seen like some of the most powerful workshops we have is because I've asked him this question, right? And it's the same that I ask for Teresa. I'm like, hey, what are some videos that you think would be totally awesome for us to do? And it's me empowering them to step up and be leaders. And then I run with it. And a lot of times it's like super successful because I led with that. So looking for opportunities for them to lead, for them to step up. Not only does it help them with their confidence boost, but it also helps them with the morale that they have while they're on the team. All right, second to last one, it's you.
Okay, so number 3 is really, we've already talked about this, but it's to empower them to come up with ideas. So you guys, this is kind of like a behind the scenes thing here. There's a private chat that we have in StreamYard, and Kurt is on here because he's like helping us with the behind the scenes, but he's already trying to come up with ideas for us. So, giving people the ability and allowing them to be able to express ideas that maybe they see some things that could improve our business, or maybe they see that something's not working and something else would work. Like allowing them that space to be able to tell their ideas, like, hey, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but maybe this would work. Like that's super awesome, because that's the kind of team that you want to have. You want to have a collaborative team. You want to have people who are empowered to be able to express those ideas. So really empowering and allowing them to give their ideas is really important.
100%. And I kind of wrote it here in the chat, and it's the difference between working for someone versus working with them, right? Mm-hmm. How does it feel when all you're doing is going in to check a box and just doing that thing versus actually having conversations about like how to make this better? How can we even like expand this even more? How can we continue to grow as a team? It's the team atmosphere versus the singular. And when you're having a team like this and you're all after that same thing because it's going to benefit everybody on the team, it's just a different feeling than just working for someone, right? One of the things that I had to tell Kurt to stop calling me is he kept calling me boss man. I'm like, no, we are like in this together, right? It's just a natural thing. It happens for me too. I call everybody sir and ma'am. I don't know. It's just a police thing. But I'm like, absolutely do not call me that, because we are a team here, all right? We're all on the same level. We're trying to figure this out all on our own. We all have different strengths, different weaknesses. We're here to like really like work amazingly well as a team. But I also don't like to think that I'm like, or for somebody to use a word where it feels like I'm at the top of the hill or not. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm on the ground floor with you. Let's crush this together. All right. All right. The last one is, as you grow your team, develop them into a leader who can lead others as your team grows. So while you're going through this process, you might find that you hire a VA and they could take on more than what they initially told you. Maybe they are great leaders. Maybe they're like able to take on more. Maybe you're giving them more and you're like, wow, like this person is like actually stepping up and being able to like, lead more than just working as a VA, right? Now, there's going to be a lot of people who don't do that, but there's going to be some gems. There's going to be some diamonds in the rough who you see as like these people like are absolutely able to like lead. As a matter of fact, like I want to put them in charge of like our future people who are going to be on our VA team. We have this on Josh's team too, where like somebody is like in charge of the VAs and they help the VAs to connect, not Josh directly. The same that's going to be over here. Like at some point, Kurt is going to be in charge of a lot of that stuff where he's going to be able to teach, train, and develop, because who better is it to teach, train, and develop? Somebody that's actually been trained, and developed through this process with me, right? And has done the actual activity and work. Guys, I've never edited a video like in my life. Like maybe I did like maybe early on. It was terrible. I refuse to do that anymore. That is all him. How are we going to be able to teach people to edit videos? I'm not going to, but at some point when we get so big here on Modern Leadership that we need to actually outsource the editing, he's going to be the one who's going to be in charge of doing that because he's like a master of it, right? And so realize that like right now, it may seem like you're just hiring a VA, but I also want you to share the vision with them a little bit. I want you to share like, you know what, this might be where we're at right now, but I promise you, we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep getting bigger. And this doesn't have to be in your plan. But if you want it to be, there might be like a lot more opportunities in the future where you're taking on a leadership role here, if that's something you want to do, all right? Like selling that, because that's in reality, that's what we're doing here. We're building up like a team of awesome people. Now, you do want to get it to the point where if that person is like growing their business so much that they're going to separate from you, that you're actually like, you're not upset because of that, right? Because in reality, what we're doing here is we're developing other leaders. We're developing other people who at some point, they might decide to go off and do their own business. And if so, like I'm all for it with Kurt. Like I'm going to make it kicking and screaming. But at the same time, like I know that like if I'm able to develop and we're able to develop as a team to get to that point, I'm all for it because that's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is not necessarily just to have success in our business. My ultimate goal is for all of us to have success, but also our own versions of success. And whether or not Kurt's with us, I hope he is, but if not, I'm still going to consider that success if he hits his version of success, all right? So definitely define, good Kurt, definitely define. And by the way, now it's under contract, bro. You can't go anywhere. It was on our YouTube channel. Definitely like leaning into and defining what this actually looks like for everybody is going to create this incredible environment. People are going to want to work with you. They are not going to be able to, they can't wait to get on a call with you, have a conversation with you, be a part of the team, share some of the behind the stuff, some of the numbers, some of the things that are coming on, giving them all the details as if they're a part of the team. It feels so incredible when you do that. So the more you can bring people in, the better it'll be for the entire team. Now, here's the thing. We're at the end here. Now, we already talked about next week. What we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be having Kurt on here. He's going to be sharing some of the strategies that we talked about today, how it actually worked, how you can put this into like actual action. Also how to like do the specific like outsourcing of your videos and your audios and your podcasts and all those kind of things. Also, he's going to be talking about repurposing, how he does it, how he saves a ton of time, like what he would look for in a video editor or a podcast editor if he was somebody who was just starting their business, how to start off if you're just starting, how to start off if you're more intermediate, more advanced, what kind of cameras, what kind of video, what kind of audio equipment. The guy is a freaking master at all. So I'm going to be asking you guys this next week. What are some questions that you would love to ask Kurt, a professional video and audio DJ, editor, person who can like do so many different skills behind the scenes? What are some things you'd love to ask him so that we can ask him here live? That's what we're going to be doing next week. And I fully want you to lean in. All right. Now, I do want to give you one caveat and one other exercise to do after this. All right. And that is like sometimes the reason why people are here on this video wanting to outsource is because they want to get to the point where they can leave their full-time job. Now, some of the things we talked about today is like how to create a team, but there are 10 things that you absolutely need to know before you even consider leaving your job. So if you're somebody who like we were a couple of years ago, we're like, okay, we want to build a team, but we also want to do this in a way that actually gets us to be able to leave our full-time job. I want to leave a video for you guys to watch. It's a workshop that Teresa and I did that talks about the 10 things we absolutely needed to know before we left our job. We wish we knew these 10 years earlier because we may have been able to leave our job way earlier than we did, but it's something that we wanted to put together for you guys, for the people who are like, I'm doing this because I do want to be able to leave my full-time job. We'll leave that for you to tap here at the end. Otherwise, if you search on YouTube Uncovering the Signs, is it time to leave your job? Definitely dive into that. It is a very powerful workshop. Even if you've seen it, watch it again. It's super powerful. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you guys very much for being the modern business leaders we need now more than ever. You guys have an incredible, incredible weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. All right? Bye, everybody.
Bye.